Greetings to all, and welcome to the Jamaica Diaspora Show. My name is Mark Millward of the West Indian Social Club of Hartford, and I'm your host. The Jamaica Diaspora Show is aimed at providing viewers with coverage of diaspora news and activities in a variety of areas, including business, arts, health, education, entertainment, politics, immigration, trade, and investment. Our first show airs on January 28th, and we are honored to have as our first guest an exclusive interview with the Honorable Andrew P. Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, who discusses harnessing the power of the diaspora and the Economic Growth Council, a council he established upon taking office. Hartford, Connecticut is the third largest population of Jamaicans in the United States, behind Miami and New York. We intend to provide our viewing audience with global diaspora perspectives and coverage from the US, UK, Canada, Jamaica, and of course the Caribbean. Please join us weekly, Saturdays at 2 p.m. on Hartford Public Access Television, providing global television network coverage at www.hpatv.org. Well, thank you, Prime Minister, for this opportunity to conduct this interview.
It's my pleasure to speak to the diaspora.
Yes, and I certainly appreciate it. The first question that I have for you, it's regarding the Economic Growth Council. Can you please explain what the Economic Growth Council is?
Well, economic growth has eluded Jamaica for the last 40 years. On average, we have grown less than 1% over that period of time. That has created its own set of problems, but this administration has decided to make economic growth the priority. We do have a very high debt problem, and the big debate in Jamaica is how do we pay down debt? Do we engage in fiscal consolidation and austerity, or do we grow the economy? The election has decided, based upon what we campaigned on, that the country should focus on economic growth whilst maintaining fiscal constraints, fiscal conservativeness, and therefore this government is taking a dual approach. We are going to maintain good fiscal discipline in relation to our public spending and taxes, and the efficiency of government, but we're also going to be very aggressive in going for growth. So what we have done is to establish a council of prominent Jamaicans who would help to mobilize the entire society, all the stakeholders, the civic leaders, the public sector leaders, the business leaders, to first of all identify what are the obstacles to growth, identify what are the opportunities, and how do we bring resources to bring the opportunities to fruition, and how do we remove the obstacles and disabling factors from the environment that is preventing growth. And therefore, this council has started working. It is led by Michael Lee Chin, a very successful Jamaican, a member of the diaspora in Canada, and he has taken this challenge on with great energy, and the first result is the production of a booklet of the possible actions that government, private sector, civil society could take, and they have made some significant recommendations.
So given the fact that they have made these recommendations, and I believe the Gleaner and the Observer covered the 8 recommendations that they made, what progress has been made to address the recommendations?
So phase 1 of their actions would be to mobilize the public to examine, consider the problem. produce a report, and then to get all the stakeholders to agree to the report, the strategies and solutions that are put in the report. And so very soon they will be signing a memorandum of intent. So the government will be signing a memorandum of intent as to what we're going to do, for example, to make it easier for people to do business in Jamaica, to reduce the time it takes to pay taxes, to improve national security, to increase government efficiency, reduce public sector bureaucracy. And the Growth Council will then transition from being the body that examines the problem to the body that oversees the implementation of the solutions. So they will report to the public as to what the government is doing relative to what it had promised to do. What is the trade unions, doing relative to what they promised to do? What is the business sector doing relative to what they have promised to do?
Well,
so the letter of intent will become a public instrument that we will use public opinion to hold the various stakeholders to account.
Okay, but given the fact that they have already made these 8 recommendations, what progress has been made with regard, and I don't know how recent these...
Well, these were published 2 weeks ago, so it would be very difficult to start measuring. Yeah. But, in all fairness to all stakeholders involved, we have been working on all elements of the problem, including crime, including the bureaucracy that is preventing much of our private sector from working efficiently, infrastructure development. So this is an ongoing process. What we have done is to bring order to the assessment and to incorporate the public in ensuring that government, private sector, and other stakeholders stay on track with a plan to grow our economy.
All right. So then let me go into one specific recommendation. I'm kind of partial to the diaspora, so I'll ask what is the plan to engage the diaspora? In fact, utilizing the Jamaica Diaspora Institute or the Jamaica Diaspora Foundation, what is the plan?
Well, the Growth Council considered all opportunities and resources that are available to Jamaica. And primary among them would be the diaspora. The diaspora is Jamaica's commonwealth. The diaspora represents a reservoir of knowledge, skills, and expertise, which we have literally struggled to find ways to utilize. We looked at one common problem that all administrations have had to deal with, and that is how can we leverage the incredible amount of goodwill and philanthropy towards Jamaica that exists in the diaspora. We do get some of it, and I'm not talking now about remittances, but what we get from the diaspora in terms of contribution to education, contribution to health, contribution to sports and community development is significant, and indeed could be more. But the common complaint is it is so hard to give to Jamaica. In fact, the common complaint is that they have to pay to give to Jamaica. So if they're sending medical supplies, they have to pay the customs duty and go through all the bureaucracy. It's very frustrating, and I sympathize with them because I have family who are members of the diaspora who have tried to assist, and they recount to me how difficult it is. So what we have already started to do is to establish a framework by which we can properly coordinate the philanthropy and goodwill that exists in the diaspora by establishing one central clearinghouse. We would call it a national trust, where, for example, to show you how this would work, a past student association wants to give to a school. The process is they would go directly to the school. But to get to the school, you have to go through customs and all the other agencies that are involved. What we would say is you would register your project and you would send whatever it is you want, whether it is cash or kind, to the trust, and the trust would ensure that what you want to give gets to the school. So you would not have to worry about interfacing with all the other agencies. Once we verify that your institution is a genuine one, then it becomes that much easier for you to assist. We would also establish various funds. So instead of you having to go and buy the computers, for example, which oftentimes the computers that are sent may not match the requirements of the school, we would make it easier for you to make a contribution to a fund, and you specify that you would want your contribution to go towards the acquisition of computers. So then it totally eliminates the need for you to go out and source goods that may not necessarily meet the requirements of the school in Jamaica. So one critical area in terms of engaging the diaspora is how to make it easier for the diaspora to give. That's one area which I think will address much of the general complaints that we have. The second area is what we call paradiplomacy. We have influential people right across Jamaica in all quarters. We haven't utilized them as much as we should. Other countries do it by appointing them as honorary consuls or as ambassadors with specific tasks. And this is one of the things that we intend to do seriously. Right across Jamaica, the United States, we will be looking to identify those persons who are in very influential positions.
Specific to the recommendation of harnessing the diaspora, I'm more thinking along the lines of the intellectual capital that's available in the diaspora. What is the administration that you have started that is going to address that?
Well, as I said earlier, the diaspora is an incredible reservoir of skills and expertise that many of them were trained in Jamaica and further developed their skills in the United States and in other countries. But they have attained great influence in their adopted countries. They have risen to high offices and hold very influential positions. And so Jamaica has to adopt a policy of paradiplomacy.
Well, is it you have the National Diaspora Policy, you have the Jamaica Diaspora Institute, and you have the Jamaica Diaspora Foundation. So I'm trying to really zero in on what are those particular institutions doing to facilitate that process.
Well, so when I said paradiplomacy, to influence Jamaica's growth prospects, you have to be able to influence the economies that you trade with. You have to be able to ensure that these economies are directing resources to Jamaica. Think, for example, the United States. We have significant presence there by virtue of our diaspora, but we have not empowered them to act. And so one direct strategy, quite aside from utilizing some of the institutions that are there, is to identify persons right across the United States, people who are connected to Jamaica, are active members of the diaspora, people who are friends of Jamaica, and appoint them to work on Jamaica's behalf. And that's just one strategy. The other strategy is that there are many members of the diaspora who want to give back to Jamaica. But there is no structured way of, for example, having a retired teacher in the United States who may have tremendous skills in special needs. Jamaica needs persons who are skilled in that area, but we don't have a program that would be able to identify, bring the person here, facilitate the person, and place them. And so that is being worked on now. it would be akin to the Peace Corps, but it would be in reverse. Okay. What we would want to do is to look throughout the Jamaican system, see where there are needs, whether it is in health, education, whatever area it is, and we would structure a certain number of posts within these areas, and then we would invite persons to volunteer to come and assist. But there would at least be a program where it would be managed, and we would be able to facilitate the volunteers
that program
to come. And so that is being developed now as we speak, and I'm certain that there are many Jamaicans who would want to participate in that. But to get to your direct question, there are several well-established diaspora institutions which work directly with the government and work with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And they've put on conferences, they've invited up ministers to come and speak, and they do have that connection and relation. But what are we doing with it? So aside from what I mentioned earlier, which is to be targeted in identifying persons who are in positions to influence and to literally recruit them as friends of Jamaica to carry Jamaica's interests, many of these organizations have to be converted into lobby groups, literally, for Jamaica. And that means they have to be missioned from Jamaica. So Jamaica has to say to our diaspora groups, here are some areas in which we need influence to be applied. The way how things work...
And you're talking political influence.
It has to be political influence, because the truth is, for example, the Caribbean region has a major problem with what is called the correspondent banking issue, the issue of foreign banks cutting off correspondent relations with local banks because of the threat of breaches that could attract major fines. And so these the foreign banks go through a process of de-risking. So they look at their relations with banks locally and say, well, this bank, their standards don't meet the standards that are required. They're risky, and we cut off relations with them. That potentially could exclude an entire region from the global financial system, which would be detrimental to our economic growth. We have over 1 million people in the United States. They are in congressional districts. They vote in state elections. They can vote for presidents. Many of them have very close contacts to the White House and to their congressmen and to their local senators. The government has to say to the various diaspora associations, in addition to persons who may not be members of the diaspora association, but who are associated, they're members of the diaspora, they're friends of Jamaica, we need you to speak with one voice on this issue so that the regulators in the United States can understand that the Jamaican government is taking every step necessary and within its powers to ensure that our local banking system complies with the international rules. And that we are not lumped together with all the other countries who are not moving with alacrity to comply. And that when we put out effort, our effort should be rewarded. And that requires the diaspora. And so I'm saying that, whilst I'm very much interested in the traditional engagement with the diaspora, my real interest now is about the economic development of Jamaica. And this is how the diaspora can assist. It is called a parallel diplomacy. So it's one thing for my ambassador to go and meet with a congresswoman or a congressman about an issue. It's another thing for a Jamaican delegation of influential people who vote in the United States or who contribute to go to their congressman or woman or senator and say, Jamaica has a problem, Jamaica has been a good friend, we need you to support Jamaica.
The Logistics Performance Index for Jamaica, we moved from a position of 70 in 2014 to 119 in 2016. And some of the reasons given for that were related to the infrastructure, was related to the quality and competency in facilitating logistics operations, and also on the timeliness and execution. So given the fact that these factors had contributed to that decline, what is being done to address
this is why we have the Growth Council. So Jamaica, being a very liberal democracy with strong institutions that operate independently, we don't always think on the same page, which is why it is so important to have a strategy to manage stakeholder relations. So the government might be saying logistics is where we need to go, but how fast do the universities and training colleges respond? How does that get into the culture and psyche of the Jamaican people to start saying, yes, logistics, which really means the timely and efficient movement of goods to meet demands. Right. That is almost a cultural change that would have to happen. And therefore, we have to not just say, okay, let's build a port, but we also have to ensure that our transport runs on time. We have to ensure that our workers understand what it means to operate on time. Right. And so that's what the Growth Council is doing. In 2 years, we would have fallen in ranking, not just because we haven't done what we're supposed to do, but the truth is that other ports are developing, other countries are developing.
And other countries are moving forward.
Precisely.
Where we're moving backward, and where the focus
I wouldn't say that we have moved backward, we just have not moved forward fast enough. So we have this new government, which is only 7 months old. We have started now to accelerate the movement towards having a logistics environment created. Previously,
so does that mean workforce development is
it means
what is being done in workforce development?
It means workforce development.
Specifically.
But it's not just workforce development. So it's the workforce development, but it is also the environment with the regulations that are enabling to business. So we have just now put in place the Special Economic Zone Act, which will be creating areas in which businesses that are logistically oriented can operate. Already, the Maritime Institute, the Caribbean Maritime Institute, they have started a program just about logistics. We note that the University of the West Indies and UTech, the University of Technology that is, they both have programs now for logistics.
Well, human resource. How do you accelerate a program? How do you accelerate?
No, the acceleration clearly means, first of all, getting the policy right, which is what we have started to do. And secondly, the allocation of resources. And in our first real budget that we will be presenting, you will see an allocation there to support the development of human resources for logistics endeavors.
Well, I'm going to wind it down and just say to you, thank you very much for the opportunity. With regards to the logistics hub, I have been very much involved in it with the Caribbean Maritime Institute and Dr. Pinnock. So therefore, I would just like to close
then you
and
would
say
know
that
what
I
they're
would
doing.
like to contribute more to
yes.
in regards
so
to
in fact, they have been the leaders in providing the human resource development. But as I've said, I mean, human resource development is one aspect, and it is not the aspect that is I think we can do that very easily. We can ramp that up very easily. The other aspects would be the infrastructure, which takes time and resources, and creating that environment in which businesses that are involved in logistics can work. So to have a regulatory environment, a tax environment, and a security environment that supports the development of logistics operations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
it. And I gather your mom is going to be 100 in December.
Yes, she is.
Well, please tell her happy birthday when it comes. And obviously she has been blessed with long life.
Thank you.
Very good.
I'll give that to her. Thank you.